Hello and welcome to our presentation for Design Activity 5, the 2016 Horizon Report for Higher Education. Eric Ballack, Karis Das, Irene Duda, Tom Jakovlik, Mike Reese, Rusty Seitz and I met to discuss midterm impact trends, difficult challenges, and a time to adoption horizon of 2 to 3 years. Midterm impact trends presented by the report including redesigning learning spaces and a shift to deeper learning approaches. With a student-centered approach to education, universities have had to rethink how learning spaces should be configured. Studies, such as the one conducted at Ball State University, found that students were more likely to be engaged in innovative learning spaces. These learning spaces are resembling real-world work and social environments. They are blended polysynchronous learning spaces that include face-to-face and virtual learning spaces. One example includes the hybrid rotational model that incorporates 3 stations, one independent that typically involves virtual adapted spaces, one direct involving small group face-to-face interactions with a facilitator, and one collaborative which involves project-based learning, a hands-on exploration and experimentation area, which also requires collaboration among the members and may involve technology and/or a facilitator. The Idea Spaces Network outlines the decision-making plan for creating these learning spaces. It is interesting to note, or important to note rather, that learning spaces need to enhance 21st century pedagogies and learning strategies. Another example of learning spaces such as these include maker spaces, which we will discuss later on in this report. One question that came up as we were talking about these learning spaces is whether play should be an important factor too, but it seems that exploration and experimentation really are play. Universities are also recognizing a shift to deeper learning approaches. They recognize that graduates need to be more prepared in vital areas such as critical thinking. So there is a push to move from rote learning toward experiences that will cultivate genuine curiosity in students so that they are excited to explore subjects further. This deeper learning requires a shift in pedagogy and the modeling of inquisitive behavior. But studies have shown that student learning increases when there are clear connections between the curriculum and the real world, and when students can see how their new knowledge and skills will impact them outside of the classroom and in the future. One example is project-based learning, which is widely considered a method for facilitating active and self-directive learning. Community-based learning can also be added as an example. Project-based and community-based learning are afforded and mediated by technology. They can incorporate a more hands-on, more real-world experience. Professors act as facilitators and orchestrators, or coaches and guides, rather than just giving information that needs to be spit back out on a multiple choice exam. And again, technology can help to further facilitate collaboration among participants. It can help to facilitate design and the generation of products. We move to discuss the difficult challenges with elusive solutions presented in the report. These include competing models of education and personalizing learning. The need for an alternative to the traditional campus-based model is recognized by both universities and those outside of the education field. The goal is to improve workforce readiness. Because of the growing majority of non-traditional college students, there is a greater need for greater flexibility and a variety of delivery models, all of which should leverage technology to foster more ubiquitous access to learning experiences. These are on the rise due to students' evolving expectations. The shift is also to competency-based education, where academic credit for mastery of clearly defined competencies is awarded. Here we asked ourselves if digital badges as digital micro-competencies would fall under this category. There is also a shift toward trends in personalized learning, which we discuss in the next slide, and in global university models. These alternative models are increasing in size and in type. They include MOOCs, nano-degree programs, programming and app development boot camps, and interactive learning environments such as tech conferencing for new developments. Cloud-based courses that reduce geographical barriers and that personalize learning experiences across a multitude of spaces, devices, languages, and cultures are what's required. Universities are using these to become more learner-centric, more efficient, and more innovative. As a result, less expensive degree paths are beginning to offer viable alternatives. There is, however, a need for regulatory reform from the government for such widespread change to take place. With regards to personalizing learning, students therefore would have more autonomy due to the variety of learning strategies, solutions, interventions that align with their individual learning goals. Personalized learning should also align with needs, interests, aspirations, and cultural backgrounds. The interest in personalizing learning is clearly outpacing the number of large-scale implementations, and many efforts to do so are more like technology development rather than pedagogical frameworks. Personalizing learning can have a profound impact on teaching and learning if it's well designed, but there are many concerns, such as who would have authority over the academic content if learning were personalized? Would the courseware replace instructors? There's also a concern about whether interactions with instructors and with peers would be lacking. In order to personalize learning, professional development for facilitators needs to be redesigned as well and implemented across the board. We moved our discussion to the section regarding time to adoption horizon of 2 to 3 years. The first section talked about augmented and virtual reality. These have become more available in education because of an increased interest in technology companies and the growing affordability that is able to connect to mobile devices. AR and VR have great benefits to learning. Museum spaces are already using AR technology to enhance their patrons' experiences, and because of the growing affordability, universities can now adopt AR and VR to simulate medical practice, provide 3D holographics and models for treatment. They can also provide simulated on-campus experiences for students attending online programs from diverse geographic locations. Stanford University and MIT have already implemented the use of AR and VR to do so. AR and VR provides invaluable experiences for students, especially in STEM-related fields, but also in the fields of journalism and more liberal arts-related fields. The last section we talked about were makerspaces, which you may recall we touched upon briefly when we were discussing redesigning learning spaces. Makerspaces are areas where community-based and interest-based do-it-yourself learning can occur, involving creativity, design, collaboration, and engineering. These are open environments, accessible physically and mentally for ideation, prototyping, and fabrication. Technological and other resources are readily available to build or create, enhance communication, collaboration, and also they're available to provide for use of BYOD. Makerspaces are free-flowing environments with movable furniture for variability. Here we talked about how to make these environments accessible to everyone. We also talked about the trend of female students not taking advantage of these makerspaces, perhaps because we're still trying to encourage female students to pursue STEM areas of study and careers in science and technology. Our final thoughts about the sections that we read in the Horizon Report include the fact that buy-in can be a hurdle and that there is never enough money. We wonder how our resources can be distributed to limit socio-economical divisions. And there was a note in the 2016 Horizon Report about money allocated for such improvements, and we wonder if that money from the Obama administration has been allocated, and if not, how will it be handled? We also noted that there is a constant need for professional development from the most basic level to the most expert level for both educators and professors. Parents and students would also benefit from basic training in technology. It seems with this trend to technology or the use of technology, we forget that students at every level may not be comfortable with this technology or may have missed those years where they would have received basic training. We wondered how we could determine and connect student interest level to best practices with technology and the curriculum. And we thought that teachers should facilitate while learning that's student-led and that they're driven by their interests and the technology's affordances. Our closing thought was to remember to keep teachers educated, and that will help them be comfortable with changes as these changes occur.